It was a brisk spring morning. You could still see your... It was a type of morning where you still need to wear your jacket to school. But the snow was melting. There were patches of snow on the grass. And there was a long patch of ice. We used to run out there and slide down that thing like a slip and slide during morning recess. It was a fun experience. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests. Reminiscing. I'm sure we've all sat around with family and friends reminiscing about good moments in our life. And we laugh about them again. And it usually starts like this. Remember a time? Or remember when? And the story begins. What I described in my opening was a moment I remember in Meriden, Connecticut, at Jonathan Trumbull Elementary School when I was in the 5th grade. Mrs. Carlson was my teacher. I think I had a crush on her. What I want to do is describe some moments that I remember, that I recollect in my childhood. On our way to Connecticut, we stopped in New Orleans. New Orleans was where my father's parents lived. We stopped there for a time and we lived in their house. I remember a time when my great aunt Elmira was watching us. Now Elmira was deaf, but she could read very well. I said a bad word. And it was a time when people used to wash your mouth out with soap when you said a bad word. But Elmira chased me with a broom. And I scurried under the bed, and I hunkered down up against the wall as far as I could get under the bed to avoid that poke of this broom. From there, we continued on, and we ended up in Meriden, Connecticut, where my mother's parents lived. I remember they lived in a duplex, but it wasn't a duplex that was side by side. It was a duplex that was, the first floor had my grandparents, and the second floor had my aunt and uncle and cousins. Now, we lived on a street over on the other side of town, on a street called Hicks Street. We also lived in a duplex. However, it was side by side. I remember looking across the street. There was a multi-unit building. It was brick. There was a lot. At the side of it, it was grass. And there was a gravel, hard-packed driveway in the back. I remember also along the back, just like these closets, were storage units. Now on that building was ivy growing up the side. The neighborhood kids said, "Don't play with that ivy, it's poison." Oh, what do you guys know? I just moved here. Grabbed a bunch of that, I rubbed it on my hands. Oh. That was the worst experience. I never made that mistake again. That stuff got all cracked and crackly and busted. I couldn't barely open my mouth because when I did, it would crack and ooze out, and it was horrible. But from there, it became summer. And I remember a time when firecrackers were legal back then, and we had these M80s. Now, M80 is a stick of dynamite. And I remember it had a hard wick that went out the center of it. And we would light those things, and we would throw them in the pond, and the water would come splashing up out of the pond. But there was a day when my friends and I took an old dented pot with a handle on it. We put it on the ground. We filled it with water. We had a coffee can. We lit that M80. We dropped it in there. We put the coffee can right on top. We stepped back. Boom! That coffee can shot straight up. The pot flipped over, and the water boiled. It was scalding. I remember a drop hitting my shoulder. It actually burned me. That was a dangerous experience. And one other time, and I think we all can relate to this, it was a time I can recall my first time at public speaking, and I was frightened. It was a play, and I think it was Mexican themed because I had to wear a serape and a sombrero. There were too many kids for the parts in the play, so the teacher divided up the lines and added character names. They gave me one line. I practiced that line, I was all dressed up, ready to go. It was play night. I stepped out on the stage. My feet were anchored to the floor. My mouth would open, but nothing would come out. I had stage fright. I was in the 5th grade. I love to tell that story when I go to the elementary school and do the youth leadership program with the 5th graders. It's an awesome, true life story that I can share to let them know that they can do this, that they can overcome their fear of stage fright, public speaking, and go for it. I just want to say tonight that we would slow down, take some time to recall, recollect, reflect, reminisce on some good memories of good moments in our life. Take the time to remember when. Mr. Toastmaster.